The first time my wife accused me of cheating, I was standing in my own living room, holding the spare set of house keys my mother-in-law said I no longer deserved. My wife, Lauren, was crying on the couch. Her mother had one arm around her like she was protecting her from me. My parents were sitting across from them, stiff and confused, and Lauren's older sister was standing near the TV with her phone already in her hand, like she was waiting to record the moment I lost my temper. Then my mother-in-law looked straight at me and said, "A decent man would leave this house tonight and give his wife peace." I remember looking at everyone's faces and realizing they had already been told a story I had never heard before. In that story, I was the unfaithful husband. I was the liar. I was the dangerous one who needed to be removed from the home I had bought, paid for, repaired, and come back to every night after 12-hour shifts. I know how this sounds, but for about 10 seconds, I actually wondered if I had missed something. That is how confidently they said it. That is how prepared they were. What they did not know was that our front door camera had been recording every time Lauren's old coworker came over while I was at work. They also did not know I had already seen the hotel charges. I'm 34. Lauren is 32. We had been married for 6 years and together for almost 9. We did not have kids, which became important later because her mother liked to bring it up anytime she wanted to make me look selfish. According to Denise, my mother-in-law, Lauren had given me the best years of her life, and I had repaid her by working too much, being emotionally unavailable, and, eventually, cheating. That was her version. The truth was a lot less clean and a lot more embarrassing. I was working too much because we were trying to keep the house. Not a mansion, not some huge property. Just a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood with an old deck, a narrow driveway, and a roof that had already cost us more than I wanted to admit. I bought it before the wedding, but after we married, I treated it like ours. Lauren picked the paint colors. Lauren chose the couch. Lauren's family came over for holidays. Her mother kept calling it Lauren's forever home, and I never corrected her because I thought it was sweet. I paid the mortgage from my paycheck. The house was in my name because I had bought it before the marriage and because, at the time, Lauren had credit card debt from before we met. I never used that against her. I never held it over her head. If anything, I was careful not to make her feel like a guest in her own home. Looking back, I should have noticed how often Denise said, "Lauren's house," instead of "your house" or "the house." At first, it sounded like pride. Later, I understood it was a position. The first strange thing happened about 7 months before the living room meeting. I came home early from a Saturday shift because a storm knocked out power at the warehouse. Lauren was not expecting me. When I pulled into the driveway, there was a gray pickup parked in front of our house with the engine running. A man was standing by the porch, not quite at the door, not quite leaving. I had seen him once before at a barbecue Lauren's old office hosted. His name was Caleb. He had that easy, over-friendly way of talking where everything sounded like an inside joke. Lauren had introduced him as someone from her old sales team. When he saw my truck, he gave a quick wave, said something into his phone, and walked away. By the time I got inside, Lauren was in the kitchen wiping down a counter that was already clean. I asked, "Was Caleb here?" She looked at me like I had accused her of stealing. "He dropped off a box from Jenna." "Why?" Jenna was another old coworker. I asked what box. Lauren opened the pantry and pointed at a cardboard box of holiday mugs, even though it was March. "Those. She's moving." I wanted to believe her. It was such a small thing. A box of mugs. A guy dropping something off. A wife surprised by her husband walking in early. Nothing about it proved anything, and I felt ridiculous for noticing how nervous she seemed. So I apologized for sounding weird. She accepted the apology, but the mood shifted for the rest of the day. That night, Denise called. Lauren took the call in the bedroom. I heard only bits of it. "No, he just came home early." I handled it. "Mom, stop." When she came out, she said her mother was upset because her cousin had canceled a family trip. I said okay. I did not push. I'm not proud of how long I ignored it. Over the next few months, Lauren started building a version of me I barely recognized. Not to my face at first. It came in little comments, usually when other people were around. If I declined dinner at her parents' house because I had worked overnight, she would say, "He doesn't really like family stuff anymore." If I asked whether we could put off buying new furniture until after I paid the roof repair bill, she would laugh and say, "Don't mind him, he thinks every dollar is a national emergency." If I was quiet at a barbecue because I was exhausted, Denise would squeeze Lauren's shoulder and say, loud enough for me to hear, "You deserve someone who wants to be present with you." I told myself they were just frustrated. I did work a lot. I was tired. I probably wasn't as fun as I used to be. Lauren had been complaining that our marriage felt like roommates, and I took that seriously. I suggested counseling. She said counseling only worked when both people were honest. That line stuck with me. I thought she was talking about feelings. I didn't realize she was planting a theme. The second strange incident involved the camera. We had a doorbell camera and 2 cheap side cameras because packages kept getting stolen on our street. I installed them myself. Lauren had access to the app. We both did. One evening I went to check whether a package had been delivered and noticed there were almost no alerts from the previous week. That was odd because our neighborhood had constant motion. Dog walkers, kids biking, delivery drivers. Our neighbor's cat that thought our porch belonged to him. I checked the settings and saw motion notifications had been turned off from my phone. I asked Lauren if she had changed something. She barely looked up from her tablet. I turned off some notifications. You said they were annoying. I meant the wind alerts from the side camera, I said. Not the front door. She sighed. Okay. Sorry. I was trying to help. I didn't know it was a federal case. That was how a lot of our conversations started going. If I asked a normal question, I was interrogating her. If I noticed something, I was paranoid. If I wanted details, I was controlling. And because I did not want to become that kind of husband, I started backing off even when things did not make sense. A week later, my neighbor Mrs. Bell caught me while I was taking the trash cans back. She is in her late 60s, retired, and knows everything that happens within 5 houses in any direction. Usually that is annoying. That day, it became the first crack in the wall. She said, "Your wife's brother was here again yesterday. Does he do handyman work?" Lauren does not have a brother. I asked what she meant. Mrs. Bell pointed toward the driveway and said, "Tall fellow, gray truck. I just assumed he was family because he let himself in with the keypad." I laughed it off. I said it was probably a coworker dropping something off. She looked at me for a second, and I could tell she knew I did not know. She didn't push. She just said, "Well, I only noticed because he parked halfway in front of my mailbox twice." That night, I asked Lauren whether Caleb had been coming by. She didn't deny it right away. That was the thing that made my stomach drop. She paused, then said, "Sometimes. He's going through a hard time." I asked why he had the keypad code. She said, "He doesn't. I let him in." I said Mrs. Bell saw him use it. Lauren stood up from the couch and said, "So now the neighbors are reporting to you? That's healthy." I tried to keep my voice calm. "I'm asking why a man I barely know is coming into our house when I'm gone." "Our house?" she said. Funny how it becomes our house when you want to police who I talk to. That hurt more than it should have. Maybe because I had spent years trying to make sure she never felt like it was only mine. And suddenly she was saying, I used it as a weapon. She left that night to stay at her mother's house. Or that is what she told me. The next morning, Denise called me before I even got out of bed. She did not say hello. I was still half asleep. I asked what she was talking about. She said, "Don't play dumb with me. If you're stepping out, at least have the decency not to project it onto my daughter." That was the first time anyone said I was cheating. I actually laughed because it was so absurd. I had been working, paying bills, fixing gutters, and falling asleep on the couch at 9:30. I did not have the time or the emotional energy to have an affair even if I had wanted one. Denise took my laugh as guilt. She said, "You think this is funny? I have watched my daughter shrink in that house. I told her I loved Lauren and wanted to talk to her directly. Denise said, "She is not safe talking to you when you're like this." When I asked what "like this" meant, she hung up. By lunch, Lauren's sister, Amanda, had texted me a paragraph about how she hoped I would get help before destroying a good woman. Lauren's aunt sent a broken heart emoji in the family group chat and then deleted it. Her cousin posted something vague about men who pretend to be providers while betraying the woman holding the home together. I know social media posts are not evidence of anything, but that was when I realized the accusation had already moved beyond our marriage. They were not asking me what happened. They were distributing their version. I called Lauren. She did not. She replied 3 hours later. Then why do I feel like I'm always competing with someone? I stared at that message for a long time. It was vague enough to be impossible to defend against. Competing with who? A coworker? My job? The mortgage? Stress? A woman? She never said. That was the trick. If I asked, I looked guilty. If I defended myself, I looked defensive. If I stayed quiet, the silence became proof. For 2 days, Lauren stayed at Denise's. I went to work, came home, ate cereal over the sink, and slept badly. I kept replaying every conversation, wondering if I had missed signs that she was unhappy. I did not want to be the guy who made everything about facts when his wife was trying to talk about pain. So when she came home on the third day, I apologized. Not for cheating. I did not admit to something I had not done. But I apologized for being distant, for working too much, for making her feel alone, and for asking about Caleb in a way that sounded accusatory. She cried. I hugged her. She said, "I want to believe you." At the time, I thought that was progress. Now I understand she was rehearsing. For a few weeks, things were almost normal. Lauren was affectionate again, but in a way that felt like someone checking boxes. She cooked dinner twice. She posted a photo of us on her story with the caption, "Choosing peace." Her family stopped making obvious comments, though Denise still looked at me like she knew something I didn't. Then I started noticing money. Not huge amounts at first, small things. A hotel charge showed up on the credit card statement under a name I did not recognize because the hotel used a parent company name. I asked Lauren about it. She said it was probably from the weekend trip we took for our anniversary months earlier. I said the date was wrong. She said hotels sometimes process late. I knew that sounded off, but I let it go because the amount was not massive and I was tired of being the suspicious husband. The problem was the pattern. Always when I was at work. Always followed by Lauren becoming extra irritated if I asked about it. Always explained in a way that made me feel cheap for noticing. One night, I came home and found the guest bathroom towels folded differently. That sounds ridiculous. I know. But I had folded those towels Sunday morning, and now one of them was damp. There was also a black hair tie on the edge of the sink. Lauren has short hair and never used those thick elastic ties. I asked if Amanda had been over. Lauren said, "Why are you inventorying towels now?" I said I was just asking. She said, "No. You're not just asking. You're building a case against me because you're guilty and you need me to be guilty too." That sentence was so specific it made me go quiet. I did not explode. I just started paying attention. The first thing I did was check the camera app again. The notifications were still off, but the recordings were there. Not all of them, because our system overwrote older clips after a while. But enough. I sat in my truck outside work during lunch and scrolled through the dates Mrs. Bell had mentioned. There he was. Caleb walking up to my front door at 11:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, typing in the keypad code like he lived there. Lauren opening the door before he finished pressing the last number. Caleb carrying a duffel bag. Caleb leaving 2 hours later with his shirt wrinkled, and Lauren standing in the doorway wearing the oversized sweatshirt she told me she only wore when she was sick. I watched it twice. Then I put my phone face down because my hands were shaking. I wanted to be wrong. I wasn't. Over the next week, I saved the camera clips. Not every clip. I did not want to become obsessive. I saved 3 clear ones. Caleb entering with the code. Caleb leaving late at night while Lauren kissed him on the porch, and Lauren carrying what looked like a small overnight bag to his truck, while I was supposedly working a double shift. The second proof came almost by accident. Lauren left her tablet on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. I was not trying to snoop at first. It lit up with a message preview from Caleb that said, "After he's out, we can stop sneaking." I froze. I know people argue about privacy, I get it. But when your wife has been accusing you of cheating while another man is talking about what happens after you are out, privacy starts feeling like a word people use to keep you blind. I opened the tablet. The messages were synced. I did not read months of their relationship. I read enough to understand the plan. Lauren had been telling Caleb I was emotionally abusive because I asked about money and cameras. Caleb kept telling her I would leave if she made enough people believe I had cheated first. There were messages from Denise too, not in the same thread, but screenshotted by Lauren and sent to Caleb. One from Denise said, "Do not let him stay in that house once both families know. Men like him count on women being embarrassed." Another said, "If he hands over the keys voluntarily, it will be easier." Easier for what? That was the part I could not stop thinking about. Then I saw the line that made everything cold. Lauren had texted Caleb. "Mom says once he's gone a few weeks, people will accept that I stayed in the house because he ruined the marriage. We just need him to look guilty enough not to fight it right away." I took photos of the messages with my phone. I put the tablet back exactly where it was. Then I went into the garage and stood there for maybe 15 minutes, pretending to look for a screwdriver. That was when everything started to make sense. The accusation was not a reaction. It was a tool. They were not trying to find out whether I cheated. They were trying to make me leave before I understood what was happening. The third proof was the hotel statement. I did not have to hack anything. The credit card was in both our names. I downloaded the last 3 months of statements and searched the hotel parent company name from that first charge. It appeared 4 times. Same hotel chain. Different dates. 2 charges matched days when Lauren told me she was staying at Denise's because she needed space. 1 matched a day when Caleb's truck had been in my driveway for 40 minutes in the morning. And then both of Denise's www.com. Them apparently went somewhere else. I printed the statements at work. Not because I needed paper, but because holding them made it harder for me to let Lauren talk me out of what I had seen. So I waited. I did talk to one person. My younger sister, Natalie. I sent her 1 camera clip and 2 screenshots. And then I called her from my truck. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Do not leave the house just because they tell you to." I said, "I don't want a war." She said, "They already started one. They just didn't tell you." That line kept me steady more than anything else. The living room meeting happened the following Sunday. Lauren told me her parents wanted to come over and mediate. I asked why my parents were invited. She said, "Because this affects both families." I almost said no. Then I realized this was probably the moment they had been preparing for. If I refused, they would say I was hiding. If I attended, they would try to corner me. So I said okay. Before everyone arrived, I connected my laptop to the TV. I told Lauren I needed it for some bill documents because I wanted everything clear. She barely listened. She was too busy arranging tissues on the coffee table. That detail still makes me angry. The tissues were staged. She put a box beside her seat like she knew exactly where the crying would happen. My parents arrived first. My mother looked worried. My dad looked like he wanted to ask me something but didn't know how. Lauren hugged them both, which was unusual. Then Denise and her husband Frank came in with Amanda behind them. Amanda did not sit. She leaned against the wall near the TV, arms crossed, staring at me like I was already convicted. Lauren started with a shaky voice. She said she had been carrying pain quietly for a long time. She said she had felt unwanted, blamed, watched, controlled, and betrayed in ways she was still not ready to fully say out loud. That was the first trick. She implied things without naming them. So everyone's imagination did the work. My mother asked, "Lauren, are you saying he cheated?" Lauren covered her face and sobbed. Denise answered for her. Yes. At the very least. Emotionally. But we believe physically too. I said. With who? Amanda snapped. That's what guilty men always ask. My dad, I really did. But it still felt like the floor dropped under me. I said, I have not cheated on Lauren. Denise said. Then why has my daughter been sleeping at my house? Crying herself sick. I looked at Lauren. She did not look back. Frank, my father-in-law, cleared his throat and said maybe everyone should lower their voices. Denise ignored him. She pulled a folded paper from her purse. It was not legal paperwork. It was a handwritten list of temporary boundaries. I remember the exact phrase because it was so insulting. Temporary boundaries. The first boundary was that I would leave the house for 30 days. The second was that I would give Lauren all house keys, garage remotes, and alarm access to help her feel safe. The third was that all communication would go through Denise until Lauren was ready. The fourth was that I would continue paying the mortgage and utilities during the separation because financial abandonment would confirm the pattern. My mother said, Wait, you want him out, but you want him to keep paying? Denise looked offended. This is his responsibility. He broke the home. There it was, the whole plan in polite handwriting. I asked Lauren, Is this what you want? She whispered. I need to feel safe. I asked, Safe from what? She cried harder. Denise turned to me and said, Stop interrogating her. Amanda lifted her phone a little, like she wanted to capture only my reaction. I looked at her and said, If you're recording, please record the whole thing. She lowered the phone. Denise's face changed for half a second. Not fear exactly. Irritation. Like I had gone off script. Then she said the line about a decent man leaving the house tonight and giving his wife peace. She held out her hand for the keys. Nobody spoke. I looked at Lauren. Her eyes were red, but she was watching my hands, not my face. She was waiting to see whether I would give them to her. I said, Before I decide anything, I want to understand the accusation. Denise said, There is nothing to understand. You betrayed your wife. I said, Then say who I cheated with. Amanda rolled her eyes. You probably deleted everything. I nodded. Okay. Then I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. The first thing I showed was not the hotel statement. It was the camera clip from our front door. Caleb walking up at 11:14 a.m., typing in the keypad, and Lauren opening the door before he finished. The clip had the date and time in the corner. The room went so quiet I heard the refrigerator hum. Lauren stopped crying. Denise said, Who is that? I looked at her. You know who that is. She said, I do not. So I played the second clip. Caleb leaving our house at 10:38 p.m. on a night I was working. Lauren stepped onto the porch after him, wearing my old college sweatshirt. She kissed him. Not a friendly kiss. Not a confused kiss. A kiss that made my mother put her hand over her mouth. Lauren stood up. Turn that off. I said, No, Denise said. This is disgusting. You recorded her without consent? My dad finally spoke. It's the front door, Denise. Frank stared at the floor. Amanda said, That doesn't prove you didn't cheat. I almost laughed, but nothing about it felt funny. You're right. It proves Lauren has been bringing Caleb into this house while telling everyone I was the one cheating. So now let's look at why she needed that story. I opened the folder with the screenshots. I had blurred anything intimate because I did not want to humiliate myself more than necessary. I only kept the messages about the plan. I put the first one on the TV. Caleb. After he's out, we can stop sneaking. Lauren. Mom says once he's gone a few weeks, people will accept that I stayed in the house because he ruined the marriage. Caleb. Do you think he'll fight you on the house? Lauren. Not if everyone thinks he cheated first. My mother started crying then. Quietly. Not dramatic. Just one hand over her mouth, looking at Lauren like she had never seen her before. Denise said, Those could be taken out of context. I clicked to the next screenshot. It was Denise's own text, forwarded by Lauren to Caleb. Denise, do not let him stay in that house once both families know. Men like him count on women being embarrassed. Then another. Denise. If he hands over the keys voluntarily, it will be easier. I looked at Denise. Easier for what? She did not answer. Frank looked at her for the first time and said, Denise? She snapped. I was trying to protect my daughter. I said, from the affair she was having? Lauren shouted, you were never home. It was the first honest thing she had said all day, and even that was not an answer. It was an excuse dressed up as pain. I said I was working to pay for this house. She said, you always say that like I should worship you. I never asked you to worship me. I asked you why another man had my door code. Denise pointed at me. This is exactly what I mean. Listen to how cold he is. My dad stood up then. He is not a loud man. He has never been a dramatic person. But when he stood, Denise actually stopped talking. He said, Cold is trying to throw my son out of his own house, while your daughter's boyfriend waits for the driveway to clear. Amanda muttered, that's not fair. Natalie was not there. But I wished she had been. I opened the final proof. The hotel charges. 3 dates. The hotel name. The amounts. The matching days Lauren had said she was at Denise's. I did not show every detail, just enough. I said, these are from the card we both used. These dates match nights Lauren told me she was sleeping at her mother's house. Frank looked up sharply. She was not at our house those nights. That was the sentence that broke it. Not the camera. Not the texts. Not even the kiss on the porch. It was Frank, the quietest person in the room, saying one simple fact that Denise and Lauren could not control. Lauren sat down like her legs had given out, but she did not cry. Denise started talking fast. She said marriages are complicated. She said women confide in their mothers during hard times. She said I had no right to ambush them. She said I had probably been saving things to make Lauren look crazy. My mother wiped her eyes and said, you came here to take his keys. Denise said, because my daughter was unsafe. My mother said, no. You came here because you thought he would be too ashamed to defend himself. I will remember that for the rest of my life. Lauren finally looked at me. She said, can we talk alone? For months. That was all I had wanted. A real conversation. No Denise. No vague posts. No accusations. No scripts. Just my wife telling me the truth. But in that moment, I realized she wanted privacy only after the public lie failed. I said, no. You chose an audience. We're staying with the audience. I said, I'm not leaving tonight. I'm not giving you the keys. I'm not turning off the cameras. And I'm not paying for Caleb to move into my house. Denise said, you can't just throw her out. I didn't say I was throwing anyone out tonight, I said. I said I'm done being pressured out with a lie. Frank stood up slowly. He looked at Lauren and said, did you know your mother planned this? Lauren said nothing. He asked again. Did you? She whispered. I was scared. He said. Of him or of losing the house? My father asked me if I wanted him and my mother to stay. I said yes. Not because I thought Lauren would hurt me, but because I no longer trusted the room. Denise tried one more time. She said, Lauren, get your things. You're coming with me. Instead, I said, take whatever you personally need for the next few days. We'll discuss the rest when we're calm. Ho. Denise made a sound like I had insulted her. Lauren went upstairs. Amanda followed her. My mother stayed in the living room with me. My father walked to the kitchen and stood by the back door. Frank sat down again and rubbed his face with both hands. Nobody knew what to say. When Lauren came back down, she had 2 bags. One was hers. The other was the overnight bag I had seen in the camera clip. She noticed me. Noticed it. And looked away. At the door she whispered, you didn't have to do it like that. I said, you were about to make me homeless in front of both families. She did not answer. After they left, my mother picked up Denise's handwritten boundary list from the coffee table. She stared at it like it was something dirty. Then she folded it and handed it to me. My dad said, Change the keypad code tonight. I did. That was the first real consequence. Not dramatic. Not satisfying in a movie way. Just me standing at my own front door at midnight, changing the code Caleb had been using while my parents sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee they did not want. The next morning, the family group chat exploded. Denise wrote a long message saying I had humiliated a vulnerable woman with private material, and that everyone should remember there are two sides to every marriage. She did not mention Caleb. She did not mention the hotel. She did not mention asking for my keys. Amanda responded first. She wrote, "Mom, I was there. You left out a lot." That was the second consequence. It did not magically fix anything, but it mattered. Amanda had been ready to record me as the villain. Now she was correcting her own mother in the group chat. Denise replied, "Stay out of adult matters." Amanda wrote, "Then don't invite me to witness one." The chat went quiet for almost 5 hours. Lauren texted me 2 days later. Her message said, "I know I handled things wrong, but you have to understand how lonely I was." I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. Not, "I lied." Not, "I cheated." Not, "I tried to force you out of the house." Just, "I handled things wrong." Like she had forgotten to buy milk. I replied, "I'm willing to discuss logistics in writing. I'm not discussing the marriage without a counselor or mediator." She wrote back, "So now you're punishing me." I did not answer. Denise came by the next evening. I saw her on the camera before she knocked. She stood on the porch with her arms folded, looking at the door like it had personally offended her. I did not open it. I spoke through the camera. She said, "This is childish." I said, "What do you need?" Denise said, "You are enjoying this." I said, "No, I am documenting this." She looked directly into the camera and said nothing for a few seconds. Then she walked away. I saved that clip too, not because it proved the affair, but because I had learned that people who rewrite reality depend on you forgetting the small moments. A week after the living room meeting, Frank called me. I almost didn't answer. He had been passive for most of our marriage. Not cruel, not kind enough to matter, just quiet. But I answered because curiosity got me. He said, "I owe you an apology." I said, "Okay." He said Denise had told him Lauren was afraid of me because I was cheating and becoming aggressive. He said he should have asked questions before walking into my house. He said he did not know about Caleb. He also said Lauren had not been staying at their house nearly as often as Denise claimed. That part made my chest hurt again. Denise had known. Maybe not every detail, but enough. Enough to know her daughter was not sleeping in the guest room she kept mentioning. Enough to help build the story anyway. Frank said, "I'm not asking you to forgive anyone. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." It was the first clean apology I got from that side. Lauren never gave one like that. When I asked if Caleb had been in our house because she planned to move him in, she said, "It wasn't that simple." I said, "Then make it simple." She said she had imagined that after we separated, I would stay with my parents for a while. She would stay in the house, and eventually we would figure out the finances. Caleb, according to her, was not going to move in right away. Right away. As if the timing was the problem. I asked whether she knew her mother planned to pressure me to keep paying while I left. She said, "Mom was just trying to make sure I wasn't left with nothing." I said, "You were trying to leave me with nothing." There were practical things after that. Boring things, bank accounts, passwords. Who could access what? What bills were automatic? I removed Lauren's access from my personal credit card and changed the streaming, utility, and security passwords. I did not drain accounts or play games. I just stopped leaving doors open for people who had been planning around my silence. Lauren accused me of financial control in the group chat when one of the shared cards declined. I responded with one sentence. That card was paid from my paycheck and used for hotel charges connected to Caleb. I will not continue funding that. No one answered for a long time. Then Amanda wrote, "Lauren, stop." That was the third consequence. Again, not fireworks. Not everyone cheering for me, just the lie losing oxygen. but I didn't. Update. About 3 weeks after the living room meeting, Caleb came to the house while I was home. I saw the gray truck pull up and felt my whole body go hot. He walked halfway up the driveway, then stopped when he saw the camera light. He held up one hand like he wanted to talk. I spoke through the camera and said, "Leave," he said. "Man, I think we should clear the air." I said, "The air is clear. Leave." He looked toward Mrs. Bell's house, probably realizing she was at her window. Then he got back in his truck and drove away. Mrs. Bell texted me 5 minutes later. "Good." That text made me laugh for the first time in weeks. Maybe I did. Or maybe it was ugly. The house feels different now. Quieter. At first, the quiet was awful. Every room had some echo of the marriage in it. The kitchen where Lauren told me I was paranoid. The living room where Denise held out her hand for my keys. The hallway where Caleb walked in like he belonged there. I thought about selling it just to get away from the feeling. Then one Saturday, my dad came over with paint samples. He said the living room color had always been terrible and he was glad he could finally say it. My mom brought sandwiches. Natalie came later with a plant she said was impossible to kill, which felt like a challenge. Final update. Lauren and I are separated now. I do not know exactly how everything will settle. I'm not going to pretend I'm healed or that I handled every moment perfectly. Some days I still feel stupid for apologizing when I was the one being lied to. Some days I miss the person I thought she was, which is its own kind of embarrassing. But I'm not out of the house. I'm not paying for a false story. I'm not handing over keys to make someone else's lie easier. Denise has not apologized. She probably never will. Lauren's side of the family is split between silence, awkward half-apologies, and people pretending they were never involved. Amanda texted me once and said, "I should have asked you before believing Mom." I told her I appreciated that. Frank checks in every now and then, mostly about practical things. But there is a guilt in his voice that I don't know what to do with. The family group chat is mostly dead now. Nobody posts quotes about loyalty anymore. I still have the folded boundary list in a drawer. Not because I want to obsess over it, but because sometimes I need to remember how close I came to walking out of my own home with everyone believing I deserved it. They did not just betray me. They tried to make me participate in my own erasure. The proof did not make everything painless. It just made the lie stop working.